The disappearance of a child is every parent's worst nightmare. But in the summer of 1922, in a quiet corner of rural France, that nightmare became terrifyingly real. What began as an ordinary afternoon would soon turn into one of the strangest and most disturbing mysteries in French true crime history. The village of Goas al Ludu in Brittany was small, peaceful, and predictable. The kind of place where nothing ever seemed to go wrong. Dirt roads wound between small farms, and the sound of animals and distant church bells filled the air. Families had lived there for generations, and neighbors trusted one another completely. Among those families were the Picards. Their youngest child, 2-year-old Pauline Picard, was known by everyone in the village. She was a cheerful little girl, with curly hair, bright eyes, and the curious energy of a toddler discovering the world. Most afternoons, Pauline played outside the family farm while her mother worked nearby. It was a normal routine in a place where danger felt almost impossible. Then, for a brief moment, she looked away. Maybe it was only a minute, maybe even less. But when she turned back, Pauline was gone. At first, there was no panic. Children wandered sometimes. Her mother called Pauline's name and checked behind the barn, inside the small shed, and along the dirt path beside the farm. Nothing. The calls became louder. The search spread across the yard, then into nearby fields. Still nothing. Within an hour, neighbors began joining the search. Farmers left their work and combed through tall grass, nearby woods, and muddy paths. Pauline's name echoed across the countryside as dozens of villagers searched desperately for any sign of the missing child. But the longer the search continued, the more frightening the silence became. There were no footprints, no witnesses, no clues. It was as if the little girl had simply vanished into thin air. And as night slowly fell over the quiet Breton countryside, a terrifying question began to settle over the village. Had Pauline Picard wandered away, or had someone taken her?
2 months after Pauline Picard vanished, hope in the small Breton village had almost completely disappeared. Search parties had combed forests, riverbanks, and open farmland again and again. Police questioned travelers, neighbors, and anyone who had passed through the area. But the result was always the same: nothing. Then, suddenly, far from the quiet fields of Brittany, something unexpected happened. In the busy port city of Cherbourg, nearly 200 miles away, a woman walking along a crowded street noticed a small child wandering alone. The girl looked dirty, tired, and completely lost. She moved slowly along the sidewalk, as if unsure where she was supposed to go. At first, people assumed her parents must be nearby, but after several minutes passed and no one came forward, concern quickly turned into alarm. The police were called. When officers approached the child, she seemed frightened but calm. She could barely speak clearly. Her words were broken and simple, like those of a very young child. When they asked her name, she said something that sounded like Pauline. That single word immediately caught their attention. Across France, newspapers had been reporting the mysterious disappearance of a little girl named Pauline Picard. The case had already shocked the country. A missing toddler, gone without a trace from a peaceful village. Could this wandering child really be the same girl? Authorities contacted the Picard family in Brittany. After weeks of grief and uncertainty, the message they received was almost unbelievable. A child matching Pauline's description had been found alive. Pauline's mother quickly traveled to Cherbourg. The moment she saw the girl, emotions overwhelmed her. Tears filled her eyes as she rushed forward, convinced she was looking at her missing daughter. The hair, the face, the small body, it all looked the same. "It's her," she insisted. Police officers, seeing the strong resemblance and the mother's certainty, accepted the identification. Soon the news spread across France. The lost child had been found. What had seemed like a tragic mystery was now being celebrated as a miracle. The girl returned to Brittany with the Picard family, welcomed back into the village that had mourned her disappearance. But behind the relief and celebration, a quiet doubt lingered. Because some villagers couldn't ignore a strange, unsettling feeling. Was the child truly Pauline Picard? Or was something about this miracle not quite right?
The miracle did not last long. Only a few weeks after the child returned to the Picard family, the quiet village of Goas Ludu was about to face a discovery so disturbing that it would shatter the hope everyone had begun to feel. One cold morning, a local farmer was walking across a nearby field, not far from the Picard farm. The land was quiet, covered in damp grass and morning fog. As he moved through the field, something unusual caught his attention lying on the ground. At first, he thought it might be discarded clothing, but when he stepped closer, a chill ran through his body. What he was looking at was not just clothing. It was the body of a small child. The farmer immediately alerted the authorities. Within hours, police arrived at the scene, carefully examining the area. The discovery quickly sent shockwaves through the village. The body was badly decomposed, making identification difficult. But what investigators found nearby made the situation far more terrifying. The clothes on the body looked familiar. Very familiar. Villagers recognized them almost immediately. They were the same clothes that Pauline Picard had been wearing the day she disappeared. Even more disturbing, investigators soon discovered a small skull nearby, along with pieces of fabric and personal items believed to belong to the missing child. The quiet miracle that the village had celebrated suddenly turned into a horrifying question. If the remains found in the field truly belonged to Pauline Picard, then who was the little girl now living with the Picard family? News of the discovery spread rapidly through the community. Fear and confusion replaced the relief that had filled the village just weeks earlier. People whispered among themselves, trying to understand how something like this could happen. Had the family made a terrible mistake? Had grief and hope blinded them into believing a stranger was their daughter? Or was there something far more sinister behind the mystery? The police reopened the investigation immediately. What once seemed like a happy ending had now become something far darker. Because the case of Pauline Picard was no longer just about a missing child. Now it had become a question of identity, death, and a mystery that made less sense the deeper anyone looked. The moment investigators confirmed that the clothing found in the field belonged to Pauline Picard, the entire case turned upside down. What had once looked like a miracle now felt like a terrible mistake. Police immediately reopened the investigation. Officers returned to the Picard farm, this time not as messengers of hope, but with serious questions that no one in the village wanted to hear. Inside the small farmhouse lived the little girl everyone believed was Pauline. She played quietly, unaware of the growing storm around her. To Pauline's parents, she was their daughter, the child they thought they had lost forever. They had welcomed her home, held her, and tried to rebuild their shattered lives. But now investigators needed answers. Doctors and officials began examining the remains found in the field. The condition of the body made identification extremely difficult.
The child had been there for weeks, exposed to weather and animals. Yet the clothing and items discovered nearby strongly suggested the body belonged to the real Pauline Picard. If that was true, then the girl brought from Cherbourg could not be their daughter. The realization was almost impossible to accept. Authorities turned their attention to the mysterious child. They tried speaking with her, hoping she might reveal something about where she had come from. But she was very young and struggled to communicate clearly. Her answers were short, confused, and often inconsistent. Sometimes she seemed to recognize the Picard family. Other times she appeared distant, almost like a stranger in their home. The deeper investigators looked, the stranger the situation became. There were no clear records explaining how the child ended up wandering alone in Cherbourg. No witnesses had come forward claiming to know her. No family had reported another missing girl who matched her description. Rumors quickly spread across the village. Some people believed grief had blinded Pauline's parents. They wanted their daughter back so badly that they convinced themselves the child was truly her. Others believed something darker had happened, that someone had taken Pauline and later placed the body near the farm to hide the truth. But there was one question no one could answer. If the real Pauline Picard had died in that field, then who was the silent little girl now living in her place?
Years passed, but the shadow of the Pauline Picard mystery never disappeared. What began as the sudden disappearance of a small child had turned into one of the most puzzling cases in French criminal history. Even as time moved forward, the questions surrounding that summer in 1922 refused to fade. Investigators studied every detail they had collected. The remains found in the field were widely believed to belong to the real Pauline Picard. The clothing matched perfectly, and the location was disturbingly close to her home. Most officials eventually accepted the heartbreaking conclusion that Pauline had likely died not long after she vanished. But solving that part of the mystery only opened another one. Because the little girl found wandering the streets of Cherbourg still had no clear identity. No missing child report matched her description. No parents came forward searching for a daughter who had disappeared. It was as if the child had appeared from nowhere, stepping into the middle of a tragedy that had nothing to do with her. Despite the uncertainty, the Picard family chose to keep the girl. To them, she had already become part of their lives. Whether she truly believed she was Pauline or simply grew into the role she had been given, no one could say. Over time, the village slowly accepted the strange situation, though the whispers never fully stopped. Some villagers believed the truth had simply been lost with time. Others suspected that somewhere, someone knew exactly what happened to the real Pauline Picard. But no evidence ever surfaced. No confession was made. No suspect was ever charged. The fields around the small Breton village returned to their quiet routines, yet the mystery remained buried beneath the silence. Even today, historians and true crime investigators continue to debate what really happened. Was the girl from Cherbourg simply a tragic coincidence, another lost child who happened to resemble Pauline? Or was the truth far darker than anyone in that village could imagine? More than a century later, the disappearance of Pauline Picard still leaves one haunting question echoing through history. What truly happened to the little girl who vanished, and who was the child who came back? The mystery of Pauline Picard still leaves many questions unanswered. Was it a tragic mistake, a strange coincidence, or a dark truth that was never uncovered? What do you think really happened in this haunting case? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. I read every comment, and your perspective might reveal something others missed.
If you enjoy deep true crime stories like this one, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next investigation. Because here, we continue uncovering the dark truths behind the world's most mysterious crimes. And trust me, the next story might be even more disturbing.